The rain fell in sheets that night, transforming the world into a blur of grey and shadows. I leaned forward in my seat, the warmth of the car enveloping me, contrasting sharply with the storm outside. My fingers drummed nervously against the steering wheel, a familiar rhythm that echoed my racing thoughts. I had just finished a long shift at the hospital, my scrubs clinging to my skin, a reminder of the lives I had touched that day, saving, comforting, healing. The thought of returning home to Mark, my husband, filled me with warmth. I had planned a special dinner for us, a small gesture to celebrate our life together. As I navigated the winding roads that led to our home, the landscape blurred past me. The trees swayed violently in the wind, and the headlights of oncoming cars seemed to dance in and out of focus. I turned the radio dial, trying to find a song that would lift my spirits, but nothing felt right. My mind drifted back to Mark. He had been so supportive throughout my residency, encouraging me during the long hours and late-night shifts. I thought of the way his eyes sparkled when he smiled, the way he held me close after a long day. Suddenly, my thoughts were shattered by a piercing screech of tires. I jolted upright, my heart racing as a car veered into my lane, headlights blinding me. Time seemed to slow as I instinctively swerved, adrenaline surging through my veins. The world spun in chaotic motion, and then, with a bone-jarring crash, everything went dark. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I was enveloped in silence, the kind that feels heavy and oppressive. Gradually, sounds returned, distant voices, the hum of machinery, and the soft beeping of medical monitors. I blinked slowly, struggling to make sense of my surroundings. Sterile white walls loomed around me, and the smell of antiseptic filled the air. Panic washed over me as I tried to move, only to be met with sharp pain radiating from my body. Hang on, a voice said, and I turned to see a nurse rushing toward me. Her face was a mask of concern, but there was a glimmer of familiarity in her eyes. I tried to speak, to ask where I was, but my throat felt like sandpaper. Sure, you're in the hospital, she said gently, her hands busy with the monitors. You were in an accident. You're safe now. As I processed her words, my heart sank. My thoughts raced to Mark. Was he okay? I tried to call out for him, but the nurse placed a gentle hand on my arm. He's on his way, she reassured me. Just focus on breathing. Minutes felt like hours as I lay there, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. Finally, the door swung open, and Mark rushed in, his face pale and drawn. The sight of him brought a rush of relief, but also a wave of dread. What had happened? Why was I here? Oh, thank God, he murmured, rushing to my side. He grasped my hand tightly, and I could see the tears pooling in his eyes. I thought I lost you. I managed a weak smile, trying to reassure him even as I felt the panic rise within me. What happened? I whispered, my voice barely audible. There was an accident. A car hit you head-on, he explained, his voice cracking. You were unconscious for a while. They said you had some serious injuries. I looked into his eyes, searching for answers. But I'm okay now, right? He hesitated, and in that moment, I knew something was wrong. The atmosphere shifted, a heaviness settling over us. The doctors are doing everything they can, he said, his voice low. But, you need to rest. My heart raced with the unspoken fears that loomed between us. Mark, what's going on? Before he could answer, a doctor entered the room, his expression serious. Mrs. Collins, we need to talk about your condition. My breath caught in my throat as I focused on his words, my heart pounding with each syllable. You were in a severe car accident, he began, his tone steady but somber. You sustained multiple injuries, including a concussion and several broken ribs. We're monitoring you closely. I nodded, trying to absorb the information, but dread coiled in my stomach. And Mark. The doctor exchanged a glance with Mark, and I felt a chill run through me. Your husband is processing everything. He was understandably shaken, but he's been here for you. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Is there more? The doctor hesitated, and my heart raced as I braced myself for what was to come. You were declared dead at the scene, he finally said, his words hitting me like a punch to the gut. But thanks to the quick work of the paramedics and our team, we were able to revive you. You're very fortunate to be alive. Fortunate? I could hardly comprehend it. My mind reeled, the room spinning as the truth settled in. I had died. I was a ghost, floating in a body that no longer felt like mine. Mark's grip on my hand tightened, his expression a mixture of relief and sorrow. We thought we lost you, he repeated, his voice thick with emotion. I could see the anguish in his eyes, and a knot of guilt formed in my chest. But then, the words came like a storm crashing over me. What about Sarah? I asked, the name like a bitter taste on my tongue. His expression faltered, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. She's been here too. We're all still trying to make sense of everything, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. As I lay there, a sense of dread washed over me. I had trusted Sarah, my childhood friend, who had been there through so much. But the thought of her presence alongside Mark felt like a betrayal. The storm of emotions swirled within me, confusion, anger, heartbreak. And just like that, I felt the darkness creeping in again, threatening to swallow me whole. I wanted to scream, to claw my way back to the surface, but I was trapped in this new reality. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I realized that the life I had known was shattered, and the road ahead would be anything but easy. My mind raced with questions that had no answers. How could I navigate a world where I had been declared dead, where my husband was left to pick up the pieces? Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would test my spirit and redefine the meaning of love and lost. Part 2, a heartbroken reality. The days that followed the accident blurred into a haze of hospital visits, sterile scents, and muted conversations. I remained in a fog, hovering between consciousness and dreams, tethered to a reality that felt more like a nightmare. Each time I opened my eyes, the sterile room greeted me with the same cold walls and rhythmic beeping of machines. My body ached, a constant reminder of the crash, but it was my heart that bore the most significant wounds. Mark was a constant presence at my bedside, his face a mixture of relief and sorrow. I would catch him gazing at me, his eyes filled with unspoken fears and burdens that I could hardly fathom. I wanted to reach out and comfort him, to assure him that I was here, alive, but the words stuck in my throat, weighed down by the realization of what had transpired. I had been declared dead. My husband, my partner, had experienced the unimaginable loss of me, his wife, his love. Every time I saw him, I felt a pang of guilt. He had clung to hope, staying by my side through the darkest hours. Yet, the truth hung over us like a storm cloud. He was a man who had lost his wife and found a way to continue living, to move forward, to survive. The hospital became my new world, one I barely recognized. Nurses and doctors flitted in and out, each offering words of encouragement, reminders of my progress. "You're a miracle," they would say, their faces alight with optimism. But as they spoke, I could see the shadows of doubt lurking in the corners of their eyes. They could not fully grasp the tumultuous storm brewing within me. When I was finally discharged, the real world felt both familiar and foreign. I had imagined returning home 1,000 times, envisioned our cozy living room, the smell of dinner wafting through the air, Mark waiting with open arms. But instead, I found myself stepping into a house that felt haunted by memories of a life that no longer existed. I moved through the rooms as if in a dream, every corner echoing with laughter and love that now felt like a cruel illusion. Photographs adorned the walls, us smiling at the beach, celebrating anniversaries, sharing quiet moments. Each image was a reminder of the vibrant life I had lived, now overshadowed by the specter of my own death. "Lily," a soft voice called from the kitchen, pulling me from my reverie. Sarah stood there, her familiar face etched with concern and something else I couldn't quite place, perhaps guilt. My heart sank. Sarah, my childhood friend, had stepped into the role of my husband's companion after I was gone. I had trusted her implicitly, and yet, now the thought twisted my stomach. "Hey," I replied, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. She rushed over, enveloping me in a hug that felt both comforting and suffocating. "I can't believe you're home," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We were so scared." I nodded, unsure how to respond. The tension between us hung heavy in the air, an unspoken acknowledgement of what had transpired. In the pit of my stomach, I knew that their relationship had developed in my absence, and the thought stirred a cocktail of anger and sadness within me. Mark's been worried sick, she continued, stepping back to look at me. You both have been through so much. Yes, I replied, my voice steady but my heart racing. It's been difficult. With a forced smile, she ushered me into the living room, where the weight of silence settled around us. I glanced around, searching for any sign of normalcy. But everything felt different, as if the fabric of my life had been irreparably torn. Can I make you something? Sarah offered, her eyes hopeful. Maybe just some water, I said, grateful for the distraction. As she turned to the kitchen, I felt a momentary pang of loss, not just for my past, but for the friendship we had shared, now stained by betrayal. I had been replaced, even if unknowingly, by the person I had trusted most. In that moment of solitude, I reflected on the nature of loss and love. The very foundations of my life had shifted, and I struggled to reconcile the feelings I had for both Mark and Sarah. I had died, but they had continued living. The thought was a bitter pill to swallow, and I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. When Mark returned from his meeting, his expression brightened at the sight of me. You're here, he exclaimed, crossing the room in a few long strides. He wrapped his arms around me, and for a fleeting moment, I felt safe. I breathed in his familiar scent, a blend of woodsy cologne and something distinctly him. I missed you, I murmured, holding on to him tightly, fearing that this fragile moment might slip away. I missed you too, he replied, pulling back to search my face. How are you feeling? I hesitated, the weight of the question heavy. It's hard to explain, I said, looking down at my hands, where the hospital bracelet still clung like a reminder of everything I had lost. I feel lost. He nodded, understanding flashing in his eyes. It's okay to feel that way. We've all been through so much. Have you? I asked, unable to mask the edge in my voice. Have you really been through it? You married her. The words hung in the air, sharp and stinging. Mark's face fell, the color draining from his cheeks. Sarah, she's been a support for me, he admitted, pain flickering in his eyes. We were both trying to cope, to heal. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Heal? By getting married? I never meant for it to happen like this, he said, his voice breaking. You have to understand. But I cut him off. Understand what? That you moved on while I lay in a hospital bed. That I became a memory while you started a new life. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. You have no idea what it's like to wake up from the dead and find everything changed. To feel like a ghost in your own life. The air was thick with tension as I struggled to contain my emotions. In that moment, I felt like a stranger in my own home, watching a life I had once cherished unfold without me. Mark looked at me, his expression a mix of regret and sorrow. I wanted to wait for you. I thought you'd never wake up. Silence enveloped us, heavy and suffocating. I felt the walls closing in, the reality of our situation crashing down. He had moved on while I was trapped in limbo, and I wasn't sure how to navigate the complex web of our relationships. Sarah returned with a glass of water, and I took it, grateful for the reprieve. But the moment felt fractured, each of us caught in our own turmoil. As I sipped the cool liquid, I looked at both of them, their faces etched with concern and uncertainty. I realized that we were all lost in this new reality, struggling to find our way back to a semblance of normalcy. In that instant, I understood that I would have to confront not only my feelings but also the bond that had formed between Mark and Sarah. I had to find a way to heal, not just for myself but for the three of us. And so began my journey, a journey of rediscovery, forgiveness, and the painful process of weaving together the remnants of my past with the threads of a new life I had never asked for. I was alive, but I was also broken, and the road ahead would require me to piece together not just my identity but the very essence of love itself. Part 3, A Twist of Fate. In the weeks that followed my return home, I found myself slipping further into a haze of confusion. The world outside my window felt vibrant and alive, yet I felt like a spectre, drifting through a life that was no longer mine. Each day blended into the next, and as I moved through my routines, eating breakfast, watching television, attending therapy sessions, I felt a strange disconnect, as if I were merely a spectator in my own existence. Nights were the worst. As darkness fell, the weight of solitude pressed down on me. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by dreams that felt too vivid to ignore. In these dreams, I was transported back to another life, one filled with laughter and light, where I played in a sun-drenched garden, surrounded by people I loved. Faces blurred in and out of focus, yet the feelings remained crystal clear: joy, safety, and an overwhelming sense of belonging. One night, after another fitful sleep, I awoke with tears streaming down my cheeks. It wasn't just sadness, it was an aching sense of nostalgia, a yearning for a past I couldn't quite grasp. I felt as though I was caught in two worlds, one where I had lived and loved, and another where I was a ghost, navigating the remnants of a shattered life. In the stillness of the early morning, I sat up, feeling an inexplicable urge to understand the meaning behind these dreams. They were more than just echoes of a life once lived, they felt like breadcrumbs, leading me somewhere. I needed to unravel this mystery, to explore the emotions swirling within me. That day, I began keeping a journal, pouring my thoughts onto the pages. Each entry was a cathartic release, a way to document the tumult within. I wrote about Mark, about Sarah, and about the love that had once filled our home. I also chronicled my dreams, weaving together the fragments of my memories like pieces of a puzzle. As I wrote, I began to see patterns emerge. In my dreams, I often found myself surrounded by a garden, lush and vibrant, where laughter echoed and sunlight danced through the leaves. It felt strangely familiar, a place where I had felt truly free. I remembered the warmth of the sun on my skin, the smell of blooming flowers, and the feeling of being utterly alive. Then, as if a switch had flipped, I recalled something more, a voice, soft and melodic, whispering my name. Lily. It resonated deep within me, a name that felt like an echo of my own. I sat up, heart racing. I had not just been given a second chance at life, I was reborn. I was Lily, Sarah's daughter, the child of two families intertwined by love and loss. With this revelation came clarity. I had the chance to rewrite my story, to explore the bond that had formed between Mark and Sarah in my absence. I could approach them as Lily, but also as a soul who had loved deeply and lost profoundly. The next day, I approached Mark and Sarah with a renewed sense of purpose. I want to understand, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my heart. I want to know how we got here, how everything changed. They exchanged glances, and I saw a mixture of relief and apprehension on their faces. Okay, Mark replied, his voice softening. But it's a complicated story. I'm ready for it, I insisted, feeling a surge of determination. We gathered in the living room, the atmosphere thick with tension. I could sense the weight of their unspoken feelings, the layers of guilt and love interwoven like a tapestry. As we sat together, the memories of my previous life flooded back, their laughter, their friendship, and the moments we had shared. I realized that this wasn't just about me, it was about all of us healing. Mark took a deep breath, and for a moment, I saw the boy I had fallen in love with, the man who had stood by me through my struggles. When you were in that accident, I felt like I had lost everything. I didn't know how to cope. It was like a part of me had died with you. I nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate within me. But you found a way to survive. You and Sarah. Sarah was there for me, he continued, his voice thick with emotion. We leaned on each other in the darkest moments. I didn't mean for it to happen, it just did. It was a way to cope, a way to find solace in the pain. I turned to Sarah, who sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. And you? I asked gently. What was it like for you? Her eyes filled with tears as she spoke. I was devastated when you died. I loved you like a sister. But Mark, he needed support, and I wanted to help him through his grief. It was never meant to become what it did. As they spoke, I could see the shadows of guilt lingering over them, a burden they had carried alone. The more they shared, the more I understood the complexity of their emotions. It wasn't as simple as betrayal, it was a tangled web of love, loss, and the desperate need for connection. I get it, I said slowly, feeling the walls around my heart begin to crumble. You both were trying to cope in your own way. I know I can't erase the past, but I want to be part of this new story we're writing together. Mark and Sarah exchanged glances again, a silent understanding passing between them. "We're grateful you're here," Mark said, his voice sincere. "You have no idea how much we missed you." "I want to be here for you both," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "Let's find a way to move forward together." As the conversation deepened, I found solace in the realization that we were not bound by the chains of the past but rather by the love that had survived it. I was no longer just a ghost drifting through their lives. I was part of a new beginning, a chance to redefine our relationships. After our heart-to-heart, a sense of relief washed over me. I felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of my emotions. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in weeks, my dreams shifting from haunting echoes of loss to gentle reminders of hope. The garden from my dreams transformed into a symbol of renewal, and I found myself wandering through its lush pathways, exploring the vibrant colors of life and love. In the following days, I immersed myself in my new role as Lily. I embraced the joys of childhood, rediscovering the world through innocent eyes. I spent afternoons playing in the park, laughter spilling from my lips as I connected with other children. I joined Sarah in the kitchen, helping her bake cookies, the sweet aroma filling the air and mingling with our shared giggles. Mark often joined us, his presence grounding me in a way I hadn't anticipated. We would sit together, reminiscing about the little things, inside jokes, silly moments, and the love that had once defined our lives. With each passing day, the bond between us deepened, and I felt as though I was stitching together the remnants of our past into a new tapestry of love. But still, the whispers of my past life lingered in the corners of my mind. Who had I been? What had I done in that life? Each night, as I lay in bed, the dreams returned, filling me with a sense of purpose. They became a guiding light, leading me back to the garden, a place where I felt whole and free. One morning, as I awoke from a particularly vivid dream, I felt an overwhelming urge to sketch the garden that had come to represent my rebirth. I found paper and pencils, letting my hand flow as I captured the vibrant blooms and sunlight that filled my dreams. The act of creation became a release, allowing me to express the emotions I had bottled up for so long. As I stepped into this new life, I realized that my journey was not merely about reclaiming what I had lost, but about discovering who I was meant to become. My past life had shaped me, but it did not define me. I was Lily, a girl filled with hope, resilience, and the power to forge new paths in the face of adversity. With each passing day, I learned to embrace the complexities of love and loss. I realized that my heart could hold space for the past while also making room for the present. I could love Mark and Sarah, and I could find joy in this unexpected twist of fate. And so, as I continued to explore my new identity, I understood that my journey was just beginning. Each day brought new challenges, but with them came opportunities for healing and growth. I had been given a second chance, and I was determined to make the most of it, nurturing the bonds that had been tested by time and tragedy. Together, we would weave a new story, one filled with love, understanding, and the promise of brighter tomorrows. Part 4, The New Life. As days turned into weeks, I began to embrace my new life as Lily. Each morning felt like a fresh canvas, waiting for me to paint it with experiences, emotions, and moments that would fill my heart. I had been reborn into a world that was both familiar and foreign, a place where I could explore not only the joys of childhood but also the intricate web of relationships that surrounded me. Sarah and I grew closer, her initial trepidation melting away as we shared laughter in the kitchen and stories late into the night. She became a confidant, someone I could lean on as I navigated the complexities of my new identity. In her presence, I often felt the remnants of my past life dissolve, replaced by the warmth of sisterhood. "Can you believe I used to be such a picky eater?" I mused one afternoon as we prepared a lunch of grilled cheese and tomato soup. The sun streamed through the window, casting a golden glow over the kitchen. "I wouldn't touch anything green." Sarah laughed, her eyes sparkling. "You? No way. You love broccoli now." I chuckled, savoring the lightness of the moment. "I guess it just took me dying to appreciate it." Her laughter faded as she met my gaze, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. "I'm just glad you're back, whatever it takes." "Me too," I replied, a lump forming in my throat. It was hard to believe how much we had both endured and how resilient we were becoming. Mark was equally invested in my new life. He took on the role of a caring father, diving into every aspect of our days together. We went on long walks in the nearby park, where he would teach me about the different trees and flowers, turning mundane outings into mini adventures. "This is a sycamore," he'd say, pointing to the majestic tree with its mottled bark. "And those are tulips. Did you know they bloom in spring?" I soaked up every word, feeling a sense of normalcy return. It felt good to connect with him, to see the spark of joy in his eyes as he shared his knowledge. I wanted to fill our days with new memories, to solidify the bond we were forging. "Let's have a picnic this weekend," I suggested one evening, my excitement bubbling over. "We can pack sandwiches, fruit, and even some of your famous cookies." Mark smiled, his eyes lighting up. "That sounds perfect. I'll bring the grill, and we can make it a barbecue." As the days passed, the picnic became a symbol of hope. I envisioned it as a celebration of our new beginning, a chance to gather not only as a family but as a unit healing from the past. I felt like a sunflower turning toward the sun, seeking warmth and brightness amidst the shadows. ******. The day of the picnic dawned bright and beautiful, the sky a brilliant blue, dotted with fluffy white clouds. I helped Sarah prepare our favorite foods, a whirlwind of activity in the kitchen as we laughed and joked about everything from my childhood quirks to the adventures that lay ahead. "Remember that time you tried to make pancakes and ended up with a giant blob?" Sarah teased, her laughter infectious. I blushed, recalling the kitchen disaster. I think I was about 5. I'm a much better cook now. With our basket filled, we set off to the park, where the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and children playing. I spotted a perfect spot under a sprawling oak tree, its branches providing a canopy of shade. We spread out the blanket and arranged our food, the simple act of sharing a meal together reinforcing the bonds we were creating. As we sat down, I glanced around, taking in the scene. Families gathered around, children running freely, their laughter a sweet melody in the background. I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, a warmth blooming within me. This was my new life, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it. "Lily, why don't you lead the games?" Mark suggested, and I beamed at the idea. My heart raced with excitement as I jumped up, ready to direct our fun. We played frisbee, laughter echoing through the park as we tossed the disc back and forth. I felt the thrill of movement, the wind rushing through my hair, invigorating me. Each time I caught the frisbee, I felt a rush of triumph. Mark cheered me on, his encouragement wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Afterward, we laid back on the blanket, exhausted but exhilarated. "I can't remember the last time I had this much fun," Mark said, glancing at Sarah with a smile. "I can't either," she agreed, her eyes sparkling. "This feels right." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of completeness wash over me. It was a moment of pure happiness, one I wished to capture forever. I knew that while my past was a part of me, it did not have to overshadow my present. That evening, as we returned home, I felt an unexpected wave of gratitude for my circumstances. Yes, my past had been tragic, and yes, I had endured unimaginable loss, but now I was here, surrounded by love and support. I had a chance to shape a new narrative, one where I could create a life full of joy, friendship, and family. *****. However, the echoes of my past still lingered in the corners of my mind. While I had embraced this new life, I often found myself haunted by memories that were both comforting and painful. I would wake in the middle of the night, dreams swirling around me like leaves caught in a tempest. Shadows of the life I had lived would flicker at the edges of my consciousness, leaving me restless and contemplative. One night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, grappling with my feelings. I missed the person I had been, the memories that felt both distant and close. Yet, I also felt a deep love for the people who were part of my new life. I could not deny the bond that was growing between us, it felt real and profound. In the following days, I began to seek out moments that would connect my past and present. I revisited the places I had loved as a child, parks, libraries, and even my favorite ice cream shop. Each outing felt like a bridge, allowing me to weave the threads of my history into the fabric of my current life. One afternoon, I found myself at the local library, the familiar scent of books surrounding me like an old friend. As I wandered through the aisles, I picked up a book I had adored in my previous life, its cover worn from countless readings. I felt a surge of nostalgia as I flipped through the pages, each word transporting me back to moments spent lost in a story. As I left the library, a sense of peace washed over me. I realized that my past was not something to be feared or buried, it was a part of who I was, shaping me in ways I was only beginning to understand. I could honor it while still forging a path forward. Later that evening, I sat with Mark and Sarah, recounting my day. I went to the library, I said, my eyes shining. And I found my favorite book. It made me think about how I can blend my past with my present. Mark smiled, leaning forward. That's a beautiful way to look at it. It's like creating a patchwork quilt of your life. Yes. Sarah chimed in, her enthusiasm infectious. Each piece has its own story, but together, they create something unique and beautiful. Their support filled me with a sense of belonging, a warmth that seeped into my soul. I felt buoyed by their love, determined to embrace every part of my journey. As I settled into this new rhythm, I recognized that I was not just surviving but thriving. I had woven together the threads of my existence, creating a tapestry rich in love, loss, and resilience. I was learning to navigate the complexities of relationships while honoring the life I had left behind. With every day, I grew more confident in my identity as Lily. I was ready to face the future, to explore the adventures that awaited me. And as I looked around at my makeshift family, I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me, a belief that love could heal, that we could grow together despite the scars we carried. My new life was a beautiful journey, and I was determined to embrace every moment, turning pain into strength and uncertainty into possibility. Together, we would create a story filled with laughter, joy, and the promise of brighter tomorrows. Part 5, Confronting the Shadows. As the weeks rolled on, I became more comfortable in my new life as Lily. My days were filled with laughter, adventure, and the kind of familial warmth I had longed for. Mark and Sarah embraced their roles as my guardians with unwavering support, and I felt as if I were beginning to stitch together a patchwork of memories that celebrated both my past and my present. Yet, even in the midst of joy, shadows lingered. Late at night, when the world outside was quiet, memories would creep back in, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I would often wake, heart racing, to the echoes of laughter from my old life, reminders of who I had been. The weight of the loss was still there, heavy in my chest, threatening to spill over into my newfound happiness. One evening, after a particularly vivid dream, I sat at the edge of my bed, contemplating the events that had led me here. I had experienced love and loss, joy and sorrow. I understood the need to honor both, yet it was becoming increasingly difficult to navigate the duality of my existence. Feeling restless, I tiptoed down the hallway and found Sarah sitting in the living room, lost in thought. The flickering light from the fireplace danced across her face, illuminating the lines of worry etched on her brow. I hesitated before entering, unsure if she wanted to be disturbed. "Hey," I said softly, crossing the threshold. "Can I join you?" She looked up, her expression softening. "Of course, Lily. I'm just thinking." I settled down beside her, the warmth from the fire enveloping me like a hug. "About what?" "About everything," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "About you, about us. It's just a lot to process." I nodded, understanding her turmoil. "It is. Some days I feel like I'm juggling two lives, and it gets overwhelming." Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze flickering to the flames. "I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. I wish I could make it easier." "It's not your fault," I reassured her. "You're trying your best to support me, and I appreciate it. But sometimes I feel like I need to confront what happened, to make sense of it all." "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I hesitated. The memories of my accident and the events that followed loomed large, heavy with unprocessed emotions. "I think I do. I don't know where to start." "Start wherever you feel comfortable," she encouraged gently. Taking a deep breath, I began to share my thoughts. I remember the day of the accident. I remember the sound, the impact. And then, darkness. I felt like I was drifting, detached from everything I knew. Sarah listened intently, her eyes brimming with empathy. It must have felt like falling into a void. Exactly, I replied, the weight of my emotions pouring out. When I woke up, everything had changed. I felt like a ghost in my own life. Mark was hurting, and I didn't know how to help him. Then I found out you two had gotten closer, and I felt this whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and confusion. I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. We were both just lost. I know, I said, my voice trembling. But I need to understand how you both moved on without me. It feels like I'm stuck in this limbo between who I was and who I am now. We sat in silence for a moment, the crackling fire the only sound breaking the stillness. I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, by confronting these feelings, I could finally find peace. Do you want to talk to Mark about this? Sarah suggested. It might help to get his perspective. Maybe, I replied, uncertainty creeping in. But I'm scared. I don't want to open old wounds or make him feel worse about what happened. I think it's important for all of us to share how we feel, she said gently. You have a right to express your pain. And he needs to know what you've been through, too. Her words hung in the air, resonating within me. I realized that hiding my feelings wouldn't solve anything, it would only prolong my internal struggle. I needed to confront not only my past but also the people who had become part of my present. Asterisk. The next day, I found Mark in the backyard, tinkering with his garden. It had become a sanctuary for him, a place where he could nurture life and escape the weight of his emotions. I watched him for a moment, admiring how he lovingly tended to each plant. He seemed so at peace, yet I knew that beneath that tranquility lay the scars of his grief. Hey, Mark, I called softly, stepping onto the patio. He looked up, a smile breaking across his face. Lily, want to help me plant some flowers? Actually, I was hoping we could talk, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Of course, he replied, sensing the seriousness in my tone. He wiped his hands on his gardening apron and gestured for me to sit on the bench nearby. About what happened, I began, feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. About the accident and how everything changed afterward. Mark's expression shifted, the light in his eyes dimming as he processed my words. I've been waiting for you to bring this up, he admitted. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it, but I've been hoping you would. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation. It's hard for me to wrap my head around everything. I feel like I'm caught between two worlds, one where I was alive and happy, and the other where I'm just trying to survive. I can't imagine how difficult that is, Mark said, his voice low and filled with sincerity. When you were gone, I was lost. I didn't know how to keep going, how to grieve for you while trying to move forward. Then you and Sarah, it felt like betrayal, I said, my voice trembling. I felt replaced. He nodded, the weight of my words settling heavily between us. I never wanted to hurt you. Sarah was there when I needed someone to lean on. I thought it was just a phase, a way to cope with the unimaginable pain of losing you. And yet, it became something more, I replied, feeling the sting of tears prick at my eyes. I felt like a ghost, watching my life unfold without me. Mark's gaze softened, and I could see the regret etched in his features. I didn't know how to tell you that I loved you, that you were irreplaceable. I was just trying to survive, to breathe. I understand that now, I said, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me. But I need to know if we can move forward together. Can we rebuild what we had? His expression brightened at my words. Yes. I want that more than anything. But it will take time, and I want you to be honest with me about how you're feeling. I can do that, I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I want to be honest with you both. I want to build something new together, but I can't do it alone. Mark nodded, determination etched on his face. We'll figure this out. We'll heal together. Asterisk. As I stepped back into the house, I felt lighter, as if I had taken the first steps toward liberation. Conversations had a way of unraveling the knots of confusion that bound me, allowing me to breathe easier. That evening, I joined Sarah in the kitchen, where the aroma of dinner filled the air. She looked up, a curious expression on her face. "How did it go with Mark?" I smiled, a newfound sense of hope igniting within me. "It went well. We talked about everything, the accident, our feelings, and how we can move forward." Sarah's face lit up, relief flooding her features. "That's amazing, Lily. I knew you could do it." "I feel like we're starting to heal," I admitted, the warmth of the moment wrapping around us like a soft blanket. "But it's just the beginning. I'm here for you, always," she said, her voice sincere. "We'll figure this out together." As we sat down to dinner, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the connections I had begun to rebuild. Each moment spent with Mark and Sarah was a step toward creating a new foundation for our lives, a foundation built on honesty, love, and understanding. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I felt a peace settle over me. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them head-on. Together, we would navigate the complexities of our relationships, weaving a new story that honored our pasts while embracing our future. I was no longer just a ghost in my own life. I was Lily, a girl filled with resilience and the capacity to love fiercely. And with each passing day, I was learning that healing wasn't linear, it was a journey, a dance of light and shadow, and I was ready to embrace it all. Part 6, Embracing Change. The days that followed my heartfelt conversation with Mark were transformative. There was a palpable shift in our home, a renewed sense of hope and commitment to rebuilding what had been lost. Each morning, I woke with a sense of purpose, ready to embrace the day and the relationships that defined my new life as Lily. Mark and I began to spend more time together, not just as a father and daughter but as friends rediscovering each other. We shared countless small moments, gardening, cooking together, and exploring the nearby trails. Each activity felt like a thread weaving us closer, creating a tapestry of shared experiences that slowly began to fill the void left by my absence. One sunny Saturday, we decided to have a family outing to a local fair. The fairgrounds buzzed with excitement, colorful booths lining the path, laughter and music mingling in the air. I felt an electric thrill as we approached, the vibrant colors and sounds sparking something within me. "Ready to conquer the Ferris wheel?" Mark teased, nudging my shoulder. "Only if you promise not to scream like a little kid," I shot back, giggling. Sarah joined us, her enthusiasm infectious. "I've always wanted to ride that thing, let's do it together." As we stepped onto the Ferris wheel, I felt a rush of exhilaration. The view from the top was breathtaking, the entire fairground sprawled out beneath us like a canvas. As we reached the peak, I looked out, taking in the expansive sky. I felt an overwhelming sense of freedom, as if I were soaring above the complexities of my life, my past fading away with each revolution. "Look at that!" Mark exclaimed, pointing to the cotton candy booth below. "Who wants to get some?" "I do." Sarah and I chimed in unison, laughter spilling from our lips as we climbed down. The cotton candy was a sticky delight, and as we walked through the fair, sharing bites and jokes, I felt an undeniable warmth enveloping us. In that moment, I was reminded of how beautiful life could be, even in the midst of its complexities. Later, as the sun began to set, we settled on a grassy hill to watch a local band perform. The air was filled with melodies that wrapped around us like a cozy blanket. I leaned back against the grass, listening to the music while the warmth of the setting sun bathed us in golden light. "Can you believe how far we've come?" I said, glancing at Mark and Sarah. "It feels like we're really building something together." Mark nodded, a look of pride in his eyes. "It's been a journey, but I'm so glad we're on it together." "Me too," Sarah added, her voice sincere. "It's like we're starting fresh, but with the wisdom of our past." As the band played, I felt the rhythmic pulse of the music resonate within me, a reminder that life was a series of ups and downs, each note contributing to a beautiful symphony. I closed my eyes, allowing myself to be swept away by the melody, a feeling of belonging blossoming in my chest. Asterisk. Despite the joy of the fair, there were still moments when shadows crept in, whispering reminders of my past. One night, while scrolling through old photos on my phone, I stumbled upon a picture of my former self, an image of me smiling brightly with friends, carefree and full of life. The realization hit me like a wave, crashing over me with a mix of nostalgia and sadness. I stared at the photo, my heart aching with the bittersweet memories it invoked. In that moment, I felt disconnected from the person in the picture, a stranger in my own past. I yearned to recapture that joy while grappling with the knowledge that I could never return to that life. As tears welled in my eyes, I heard a soft knock on my door. It was Sarah, her gentle presence a comfort. "Can I come in?" I nodded, grateful for her company. She stepped inside, concern etched on her face as she noticed my tears. "What's wrong, Lily?" "I was just looking at old photos," I admitted, my voice shaky. "It's hard to see the girl I used to be. I feel like I've lost so much." She sat beside me, her expression understanding. "It's okay to miss that part of yourself. You've gone through a lot, and it's natural to feel overwhelmed. I want to embrace this new life, but I don't know how to reconcile it with my past," I confessed, my heart heavy. Sarah reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "You're not losing your past, you're evolving. It's okay to honor who you were while also embracing who you are now. They can coexist." Her words resonated with me, sparking a flicker of hope. "How do I do that?" "By allowing yourself to feel everything, both the joy and the pain. And by creating new memories that honor your journey," she suggested. "You can celebrate your past while also embracing your present." Taking a deep breath, I wiped my tears and nodded. "You're right. I want to celebrate both parts of me. I want to create a life that acknowledges my past but doesn't let it define me." "That's the spirit." Sarah beamed, her eyes bright with encouragement. "Let's plan something special, a way to honor your past and celebrate your new beginnings." Over the next few days, we brainstormed ideas, and finally, we settled on a small gathering with friends. I wanted to invite people from my life before the accident, people who had meant so much to me, but also those who had become my new family. I envisioned it as a bridge, connecting the two parts of my life and allowing me to step confidently into my new identity. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. On the day of the gathering, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The living room was adorned with photographs from both my past and present, a visual representation of my journey. I set up a table filled with snacks and drinks, inviting a sense of community and connection. As the doorbell rang, my heart raced. Friends from my previous life began to arrive, their laughter filling the space with warmth. It felt surreal to see familiar faces, reminders of a life that felt both distant and close. They greeted me with open arms, their hugs enveloping me in a comforting embrace. "Lily, it's so good to see you," one friend exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. "We've missed you." "I've missed you all too," I replied, feeling a sense of belonging wash over me. As the evening unfolded, we shared stories, laughter, and fond memories. I introduced my new family, Mark and Sarah, to my friends, bridging the gap between my past and present. Their warmth and acceptance made the room feel like a tapestry of love, woven together by shared experiences and connections. At one point, I found myself standing with a group of friends, recalling moments from our youth. "Remember the time we tried to bake cookies and ended up with a gooey mess?" I laughed, the memory flooding back. "Or when we staged that epic water balloon fight in the backyard," another friend chimed in, laughter bubbling up around us. In those moments, I felt the joy of nostalgia, the bittersweet realization that while my past had shaped me, it didn't have to confine me. I could cherish those memories while also embracing the beauty of my present. As the evening drew to a close, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I had created a space where both parts of my life could coexist, a celebration of resilience and growth. My heart swelled as I looked around, witnessing the connections forming before my eyes. Later, as the last guests departed and the house settled into silence, I turned to Mark and Sarah, my heart brimming with emotion. "Thank you for supporting me through all of this. I couldn't have done it without you." Mark smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "You're stronger than you realize, Lily. We're just here to walk beside you on this journey." Sarah nodded, her eyes warm with love. "You've created something beautiful, and we're honored to be a part of it." As I reflected on the evening, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I had taken steps to integrate my past and present, allowing both to coexist within me. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but I felt more equipped to face it with an open heart. That night, as I lay in bed, I closed my eyes and envisioned the vibrant tapestry of my life, the threads of joy, sorrow, love, and resilience woven together. I understood that embracing change didn't mean forgetting, it meant honoring every part of my journey. I was ready to move forward, embracing the complexities of my identity as Lily, and welcoming whatever adventures lay ahead. My past was a part of me, but it would no longer define me. Instead, I would step into each new day with courage, love, and the belief that I could create a life filled with light and possibility. Part 7, The Unraveling of Truths. As the months rolled on, I settled into a rhythm with my writing and my new life. My blog, The Resilient Journey, had garnered a small but devoted following. Each post brought messages from readers who resonated with my experiences, creating a sense of community that warmed my heart. But while I thrived in this new space, shadows of the past still loomed, waiting for the right moment to cast their weight upon my shoulders. One chilly winter evening, I was curled up on the couch with a blanket, working on a new piece about forgiveness and healing. My fingers danced over the keyboard, each word pouring out like a stream of consciousness. Just as I was reaching a particularly poignant moment, Mark entered the room, his face flushed from the cold. "Hey, Lily, do you have a minute?" he asked, his tone slightly serious. "Of course, what's up?" I replied, setting my laptop aside. "I think it's time we talked about something important," he said, his gaze earnest. "There are some things from my past that I've kept from you, and I believe it's time you know." A knot tightened in my stomach. I had always sensed that Mark carried burdens from his past, especially concerning my accident. "Okay," I said cautiously, motioning for him to sit. Mark took a deep breath, his hands fidgeting. "You remember the night of the accident?" I nodded, my heart racing. "It's hard to forget." He hesitated, his eyes searching mine for understanding. "That night, I was with someone else. Sarah's mother." The revelation hit me like a cold wave. "What do you mean?" "I thought Sarah's mom, she passed away before the accident." "She did," he replied, his voice heavy with remorse. "But the truth is, I was seeing her on the side. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness during a time when I felt lost and overwhelmed." The air grew thick with tension. I felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted. "You were unfaithful to my mother?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I never meant to hurt anyone," Mark rushed to explain. "It was complicated. I was trying to navigate my own grief after losing her, and I didn't know how to cope. When the accident happened, I was already entangled in that mess. I never told you because I wanted to protect you from the pain." I sat in silence, processing his confession. My mind raced back to memories of my childhood, my mother's laughter, her warmth, and the love that had filled our home. The thought that my father had been involved with someone else during that time shattered my perception of our family. "I need some time to think about this," I said finally, my voice quiet. "Lily," he began, but I raised my hand to stop him. "I understand that you're trying to be honest with me now, but I need space to process this. Please." Mark nodded, his expression pained, and he left the room. I felt as if the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, and it stung deeper than I expected. I had always viewed Mark as my rock, the one person who had held our family together. Now, I was forced to reevaluate everything. The following days were filled with turmoil. I threw myself into my writing, hoping to channel my emotions into something productive, but the words eluded me. The confession weighed heavily on my mind, clouding my thoughts. I couldn't focus on my usual routine, everything felt tainted. During a rare moment of quiet, I decided to reach out to Sarah. She had been my confidant, and I needed her perspective. We met at a cozy coffee shop, the familiar scent of espresso wafting through the air. "Hey, you look like you've been through the ringer," Sarah said, concern etched on her face as I sat down across from her. "Yeah, I've been dealing with some heavy stuff," I admitted, rubbing my temples. "Mark shared something with me, and it's really thrown me for a loop." "What happened?" she asked gently, her eyes wide with interest. "Mark was unfaithful to my mother before the accident." He was seeing your mom, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's eyes widened, and she took a moment to process my words. Oh, I didn't know. I mean, I knew they had a close friendship, but I didn't expect this from him, I interrupted, frustration boiling over. I thought he was my steadfast support, and now everything feels like a lie. Lily, I can't imagine how hard this must be for you, Sarah said softly. But have you thought about what this means for you moving forward? For your relationship with him? I don't know, I admitted, feeling vulnerable. I feel so betrayed, yet I know he's trying to be honest now. But it's hard to trust someone when you feel like they've hidden such a significant part of their life. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. You need to give yourself the space to feel all of this. It's okay to be angry, to be hurt. But also consider what it means for your relationship. Can you see a path forward? I sighed deeply, the weight of her words settling in. I want to, but right now, I feel like I need to protect myself. I don't know if I can just forgive and forget. As we talked, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I appreciated Sarah's perspective, but I still felt lost in a sea of confusion and emotion. How could I reconcile my love for Mark with the betrayal he had committed? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the days that followed, I made a conscious effort to create boundaries. I spent more time focusing on my writing, using it as a tool for processing my emotions. I wrote about betrayal, trust, and the complexities of love. My readers resonated with these themes, and their feedback offered me solace. But even as I shared my thoughts online, I struggled with my feelings toward Mark. I could see the pain in his eyes whenever we crossed paths, and it broke my heart to witness his remorse. Yet, the betrayal lingered, casting a shadow over every interaction. One evening, I found myself sitting on the porch, lost in thought. Mark stepped outside, hesitantly taking a seat next to me. Can we talk? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I'm ready, I replied honestly, my heart racing. I understand, he said, his gaze fixed on the stars. But I want to clarify that I never meant to hurt you. I was trying to navigate my grief and lost my way. I regret every moment of it. Regret doesn't change what happened, I said, frustration bubbling up again. You broke my trust. You broke my mother's memory. I know, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. But I want to rebuild that trust with you. I'm committed to being honest and transparent moving forward, even if it's uncomfortable. Tears filled my eyes as I processed his words. I want to believe you, but it's hard. I don't know how to move forward from this. Let's take it one step at a time, he suggested, his voice steady. I'm here for you, no matter how long it takes. I nodded slowly, uncertainty still weighing on my heart. But as we sat there in silence, I realized that healing would take time to rebuild trust and mend the fractures in our relationship. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the complexities of love and forgiveness. I felt raw and vulnerable, but also empowered by my willingness to confront these truths. I recognized that navigating this journey would require patience, both for myself and for Mark. The next morning, I picked up my notebook and began writing a new piece titled The Path to Forgiveness. As I wrote, I explored the intricacies of betrayal and the possibility of healing. I poured my heart into the words, detailing how the journey of forgiveness is not linear but rather a winding road filled with ups and downs. As I shared my thoughts online, I noticed the comments flooding in again, readers offering their own stories of betrayal and forgiveness. I felt a sense of connection with each one, reminding me that I wasn't alone in my struggles. Over the following weeks, I continued to meet with Sarah and pour my heart into my writing. I also made an effort to reconnect with Mark, initiating open and honest conversations. We began to share our feelings, discussing our fears, hopes, and the work required to rebuild our relationship. Slowly but surely, I began to feel the weight of betrayal lift, replaced by a cautious optimism. It wasn't easy, and there were still days when I felt overwhelmed by anger and sadness. But I realized that healing was a process, one that required vulnerability and honesty from both of us. As winter transitioned into spring, the world around me blossomed. I took this as a metaphor for my own growth, a reminder that even after the harshest of winters, new life could emerge. My journey was far from over, but with each passing day, I felt more empowered to embrace the complexities of love, trust, and forgiveness. I knew I was on the right path, not just for myself, but for the relationships that mattered most. As I moved forward, I was committed to fostering love and connection, even in the face of betrayal. This was my journey, and I was ready to face whatever came next. Part 8, A New Beginning. As spring fully unfurled its colors and fragrances around me, I could feel the shift within my own heart. The world outside transformed, flowers blossomed, trees regained their leaves, and sunlight bathed everything in a warm glow. It felt symbolic of my own journey, and I was ready to embrace it. The healing process had not been easy, but it had forged a stronger bond between Mark and me. We had spent countless hours talking, sometimes in tears, sometimes in laughter, learning how to communicate openly about our fears and hopes. I was beginning to trust him again, albeit tentatively, but trust needed time to re-establish itself, and I was committed to nurturing it. One crisp Saturday morning, I awoke with an idea, a vision for a project that could intertwine my writing, my healing, and my passion for storytelling. I had been contemplating hosting a community event centered around resilience, healing, and connection. It would be a space where people could share their stories, much like I had, creating an atmosphere of support and understanding. Excited, I rushed downstairs to share my idea with Mark and Sarah. They were sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, when I burst in, my heart racing. "I have an idea," I announced, practically bouncing on my toes. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I want to host a community gathering, an event focused on resilience and storytelling," I said, my enthusiasm bubbling over. "We can invite people to share their journeys, creating a safe space to connect and heal." Mark's face lit up, and he nodded in agreement. "That sounds incredible. I think it would really resonate with a lot of people. You've already built a community through your blog, so why not expand it into something tangible?" "Exactly," I replied, feeling the rush of possibility. "We could include workshops on writing, art, and even healing practices like yoga or meditation. I want to bring people together and help them realize they're not alone." Sarah clapped her hands in excitement. "I love this idea. We can reach out to local organizations and see if they want to collaborate. This could be a wonderful way to support our community." The three of us spent the rest of the day brainstorming, planning, and reaching out to potential collaborators. With every conversation, I felt a surge of purpose and energy. This event was not just about me, it was about creating a platform for others to share their stories, just as I had begun to do. As the weeks passed, the event began to take shape. We settled on a date in early summer, a few months ahead, allowing us ample time to organize everything. I reached out to local authors, artists, and wellness practitioners, inviting them to contribute. To my delight, many were eager to participate, sharing their own stories of resilience. I poured my heart into promoting the event, using my blog and social media to spread the word. Each post stirred excitement, and I was astonished by the enthusiastic response. People began to share their own experiences of healing, and I felt the community's energy build like a crescendo. One evening, as I sat down to write an update about the event, I received a message that made my heart race. It was from a woman named Jenna, who had read my blog and wanted to share her story. She had faced significant trauma and had recently begun her own healing journey. I invited her to speak at the event, thrilled at the opportunity to showcase such a powerful narrative. As the days turned into weeks, I could feel the anticipation building. The night before the event, I could hardly sleep, my mind racing with thoughts and expectations. What if no one showed up? What if my vision didn't come to fruition? I reminded myself that this wasn't just about me, it was about fostering connection, regardless of the outcome. The day of the event dawned bright and beautiful. I arrived at the community center early, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. The space was decorated with bright banners and tables laden with art supplies, snacks, and information about local resources for healing. I took a moment to breathe in the atmosphere, feeling the energy of possibility surrounding me. As the attendees began to trickle in, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. People from various backgrounds gathered, united by the common thread of resilience. I welcomed them with open arms, and soon the room buzzed with conversation and laughter. Jenna arrived, her warm smile instantly putting me at ease. We spent some time chatting before the event began, and her story of survival inspired me. As she shared her journey with me, I felt a deep connection to her struggles and triumphs. "Thank you for creating this space," Jenna said, her eyes shining. "It means so much to be able to share my story and connect with others who understand." As the event commenced, I introduced the first segment, highlighting the importance of storytelling in the healing process. I spoke passionately about how our experiences could foster understanding and empathy, allowing us to find common ground. The audience listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of emotions. The first speaker was Jenna. As she stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Her vulnerability was palpable as she recounted her struggles and the path she had taken toward healing. I watched, captivated, as her words resonated deeply with everyone present. Tears were shed, and applause erupted when she concluded, the room buzzing with newfound energy. Throughout the day, other speakers shared their stories, each one unique yet threaded with universal themes of loss, resilience, and hope. Participants engaged in workshops, expressed themselves through art, and found solace in shared experiences. The atmosphere was electric, filled with connection and understanding. As the event drew to a close, I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. People lingered, sharing contact information and promising to support one another beyond this gathering. I smiled, knowing that I had achieved what I set out to do, create a space where healing could flourish. Mark found me amidst the crowd, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Lily. This is incredible," he said, pulling me into a tight hug. "Thank you for believing in me," I replied, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without your support." We spent the rest of the evening mingling with attendees, soaking in the joy and connection that permeated the air. I felt lighter than I had in months, and the burdens of the past began to feel less heavy. I was reminded that healing is a collective journey, one that we can navigate together. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I stepped outside to take a moment for myself. I inhaled deeply, appreciating the beauty of the moment. I realized how far I had come not just in my journey of healing, but in my ability to embrace life fully, even with its complexities. In that quiet moment, I understood that forgiveness was not just about letting go of the past but about creating a future filled with hope and possibility. My relationship with Mark had evolved, and while the road ahead might still be rocky, we were committed to traveling it together, hand in hand. As the weeks turned into months, I continued to cultivate the connections forged during the event. I started a monthly support group, providing a safe space for individuals to share their stories and experiences. It became a haven for many, and I felt honored to facilitate these conversations. Through my writing, I continued to explore the intricacies of love, loss, and healing. I began to compile my blog posts into a memoir, intertwining my personal journey with the stories of those I had met along the way. Each story added depth and texture to my own narrative, reminding me that we are all interconnected. Mark and I found a renewed sense of intimacy, built on trust and open communication. We navigated the complexities of our relationship, embracing vulnerability as we learned to support each other through life's challenges. I could see the growth in both of us, and it filled me with hope. One evening, as we sat together, I looked into Mark's eyes, seeing a reflection of the man I had always known, the man who had made mistakes but was also willing to learn and grow. "I'm proud of us," I said softly, reaching for his hand. "We've come a long way." "We have," he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "And I'm grateful for every step of this journey with you." In that moment, I understood that healing is not a destination but a continuous journey, one filled with ups and downs, twists and turns. It's about learning, growing, and finding beauty in the process. As I stood at the precipice of a new beginning, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had embraced the complexities of my past and transformed them into something beautiful, a narrative of resilience, hope, and love. With every story shared, every connection forged, and every moment cherished, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came next. The future lay before me, an open road filled with endless possibilities, and I was ready to walk it, hand in hand with those I loved.